Hi everybody, welcome to another video for Wild Child Wellness. This is where we discuss natural remedies for common childhood symptoms and when to seek medical attention. So I'm Julie DeVono and I have 30 years experience as a pediatric nurse and also in medicinal herbalism. So today, instead of picking a specific symptom topic to talk about, I have some really exciting news. So I have ventured on a new business and started blending my own medicinal herbal teas for children. So I'm going to go over some of the different options I have available and go over the different symptoms that they might be useful for. Before I go any further, just a reminder that these videos are not a substitute for medical advice from a trusted medical provider, and you should get yourself one of those. So as some of you know, this herbalism and homeopathy is the topic of many of these videos, something that I've always been interested in. Like I've always said, over the years, I just pull from more than one toolbox. I'll have my mainstream medical remedies, prescription medications, over-the-counter medications, as well as medicinal teas and homeopathy. And, sometimes a different tool is right for a different job. And sometimes if a tool doesn't seem to be working out that well, you can either help it work better by bringing in other tools. That's just been my practice perspective. Now I have decided, based on requests over the years from many of my patients and my friends, they would call me up and say, hey, what herbal remedy would you recommend for this? What would you recommend for that? And I would throw a couple of ideas at them. Very often they would all say, well, why don't you just blend your own recipes and make your own line of teas? And so, after a couple of years, recently I thought, maybe I'll go ahead and do that. So that is my new venture, and they are called Wild Child Wellness Teas. And I have an Etsy shop called Wild Child Well, so they're available there. And I'm going to put the link in the video as soon as I figure out how to do a link, because that's something I'm still challenged by. Anyway, I'm also hitting a couple farmers markets in the area. It's funny because I was looking forward to eventually recording these videos outdoors, and I thought maybe I might be able to do that today, but then, here in the mountains of the Poconos, I woke up this morning with an inch of snow all over the ground and all over my, all over the place. I'm like, okay, the weather's not ready for me to do these outdoors yet, but I'm looking forward to that. So all of these teas are based on my own personal recipes, and I hand blend them myself. They come in 2-ounce jars. These are the little ones, and 4-ounce jars. So the ingredients are listed in each one, but I'm going to go over those. So the first thing that I have available is a cough relief tea. Now, this may sound familiar because in an earlier video when I was talking about cough, I gave a recipe for how to make your own cough syrup. This herbal tea is basically that recipe. It's the base dry herbal ingredients that you take from the jar already mixed and blended, and instead of simmering them in a cup of hot water, you are going to heat up a cup of honey on the stove and steep the tea in that. Now, when you're using a dry tea, and I don't want it to be confusing. When I'm referring to a tea, I'm not referring to a brewed cup of hot tea. I'm referring to the dry ingredients. So I know that can be a little confusing because then you'll say things like, well, make a tea out of tea. But when I'm saying tea, I'm referring to the dry ingredients. And that's because there's a lot of different things you can do with these teas. You don't just have to put it in hot water and drink it. And in fact, with some of these, like the vaccine detox tea or the immune boost tea, the flavor profile really isn't that great. And, I would love to say all of these teas taste great, but that would be lying. Some of them taste pretty horrible actually, but they work really well. Sometimes I'll try to add other herbs like peppermint to help improve the flavor. But at the end of the day, if you're going to compromise flavor for effectiveness, then you would want to buy a different tea. You would want to buy a tea that you would want to drink for enjoyment, for flavor. These are purely medicinal herbal teas. sometimes they don't taste great. But there are ways you can get around that. Some parenting tips that I would give are, what is your child like? Some of these teas have, especially the Immune Boost tea, that has a lot of savory ingredients like paprika, turmeric, and ginger and garlic. So maybe that wouldn't taste so great steeped in honey to make a syrup. That would probably taste pretty horrible. But you can add a chicken bouillon cube to your boiling water, or if you're vegetarian, you could do a vegetable bouillon cube and add the tea ingredients and steep it in the broth to kind of mask those savory flavors. So it would taste better, and it might be easier to get your child to take them as a broth, because those are the flavors they expect from a chicken broth or a vegetable broth. Some of the teas, like I was saying with the cough or the sore throat soother, really do work well to use the tea, the dry tea, to make a syrup. And you can use honey if your child is over 2 years of age, or if they're younger than that, or if you just don't want to use honey, you can use agave syrup. These teas are safe for 6 months and up, as long as your child has been exposed to the ingredients by themselves first, just like you do when you're introducing food. If you have a tea that's got peppermint and chamomile, like the sleep tea, it has peppermint, chamomile, passion flower, and lemon balm. Well, maybe your child hasn't had those ingredients, so you don't want to just give them the tea. You want to actually give them each ingredient individually first for a couple of days to make sure they're not allergic. But if you're confident that your child can tolerate those things and they're not allergic to it, then you can actually give these for 6 months and up. And one of the things that I did that's a little different is there's a label on the bottom of the jars. For the big ones, it's on the bottom. For the little ones, it's on the back. And these labels actually outline what the dose would be for a child based on their weight. Because just like with medication, you're not going to give the same amount to an adult that you would give to a 2-year-old. You would want to give less. So there are guidelines on the teas telling you based on weight how much to cut the dose by. So in herbalism, we use something for children's dosings called the 150 rule, and it's actually a pretty involved, complicated math formula. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you do math. I did the math for you. But what it means is that if the adult dose is 1 cup, then a child of, let me just read the label. For example, if you have a child who is between 75 and 100 pounds, they would get half the dose. So if the adult dose is 1 cup, you would give them half a cup. But if you have a little tiny child and they're between 15 and 25 pounds, it's not going to say on the label the amount to give as far as the tea or the herbs. It's going to say, well, whatever the adult dose is, you give 1/8 of the dose. So if something like with these teas, the adult dose is 1 cup, with the assumption being that you used 2 teaspoons of dry herb to make that cup of tea, then the dose for that little child would be 1/8 of that, or 1/8 of the cup. Now, the reason that I wrote it this way, and the reason why it's important to understand that, is because let's say you decide to use the dried teas to make a syrup, like for the one for cough. So, the recipe, the instructions say to use 2 teaspoons of dry tea in 1 cup of honey. But you're going to steep it longer because you don't want to drink a whole cup of honey. You want to take a smaller dose of the honey. So instead of steeping the tea for 10 minutes like you would do with a broth or water, you're going to actually steep it, meaning simmering it on low heat. You don't want it to boil. Boiling tea actually breaks down the tannins and the other ingredients in the tea, and you don't want to do that. So when you're making tea, you just want to simmer. You don't want to boil it. So when you've got your honey at a good temperature and you put your 2 teaspoons of tea into the 1 cup of honey, instead of steeping it for 10 minutes, you're going to actually steep it for 20 minutes. And what that's going to do is it's going to make the product more concentrated, so you don't have to take so much. So then on the instructions, it'll say, well, the adult dose, if you make the syrup, is 1 tablespoon. So then based on the weight, if the child is smaller and the instructions say to give 1/4 of the dose, then that means you're going to give a quarter of that tablespoon. Sometimes it's a little bit tough, takes a little bit of eyeballing, and you're like, okay, I'm close. But the good thing about these medicinal herbal teas is the dosing parameters are safe. So if you're a little over or a little under, it's not that big a deal. You can do your best, but it does at least give you some guidelines as a parent, because I really feel like with most medicinal herbal teas on the market, that's what's missing. The assumption is it's for adults and you don't need to worry about that. But I do really want to encourage and promote the use of medicinal herbalism for children. And I think with a lot of parents, what they need to feel comfortable doing that is a little more guidance and guidelines so they know they're being safe. So now getting into each specific type, there is a tea for cough, and that has things like cherry bark, which is a very well-known herbal cough reliever. I hate to use the word suppressant because nothing can really 100% suppress a cough, but it does quiet the cough so the child doesn't cough as much. And then it's also got pineapple extract. Now, when I was looking for that, I was going back and forth between dried pineapple, which is difficult to work with, or a pineapple juice, but then the product would have to be refrigerated, and I didn't want to have to worry about that. So then I found a great pineapple powder, and that's shelf stable for a long time, and it's easy to blend with the herbs. So the pineapple powder is really good for cough because it's got bromelain in it, which is an ingredient that is an excellent chest expectorant. It's also got thyme, slippery elm, and marshmallow root, which are all different herbs to help quiet a cough, provide you some relief. So I recommend using the cough tea to either make a cup of tea or making that cough syrup, like I discussed. Another option is where you can use the syrup is, like I mentioned, the sore throat tea. The sore throat tea is a combination of licorice root, chamomile, and peppermint. And so the good thing is it doesn't taste too bad. You know, it's got some pretty good tasting herbs mixed in it. And with the licorice root, if you like licorice, you'll like the taste. If you hate licorice, you probably won't. But the licorice root's important because there's actually been a research study that showed licorice root to be as effective as killing strep bacteria as some other mainstream medications like antibiotics. So that was proof to me that this ingredient is really good at helping to prevent strep throat and protect you from getting strep throat. And if you're in the early stages of feeling like you have a sore throat and fever, a couple of cups a day or a couple of teaspoons of the syrup, and it may prevent the strep from setting in. I'm always very careful though when talking about strep throat, because if you really truly have strep throat and after a couple of days of doing the tea you're not feeling better, you really do want to go and get tested and treated. But if you're early, you have the strep in your throat on your tonsils, but it hasn't really set in yet. The research study I read showed that the licorice root can actually kill that strep before it has a chance to really settle in. So that's a really good one. And then I mixed one that's just an overall immune system booster. That's the one that I said would really work better as a chicken or a vegetable broth because it's got those really savory flavors. And it's got a combination of elderberry syrup, which actually is sweet and fruity. So you're like, well, that wouldn't taste too bad as a tea. And you could try it. But it's also got the echinacea, which is fine, and astragalus, which is fine. But and it's got cinnamon sticks. So, you know, now that I think of it, maybe it wouldn't be that bad as a tea. You know, I guess it depends on what you like. I think what kills it is it's got paprika and turmeric. And both of those ingredients are not going to really match the flavor profile very well, but they're so powerful as antioxidants to help prevent you from getting sick and boosting your immune system that I really just couldn't leave those out of the recipe. So, you know, you give it a try and see what works best for you. And then, of course, for mamas with little babies out there, I have a sleepy tea. Where's my sleepy tea? Here it is. So the sleepy tea, this one's probably the best tasting tea, just coincidentally, which is a good thing when you're trying to give it to young children. But this is a combination of lavender, chamomile, passion flower, and lemon balm. And all of those ingredients work really good at helping to calm a child down and help make a child sleepy. I mean, we all know lavender, even just smelling it relaxes you. The chamomile is great at relaxing and calming and making you feel sleepy. So all of those ingredients combined together work really well. You can give a child a cup of this tea at bedtime, and I think you'll find that you'll have a much easier time putting them to sleep. No, getting them to go to sleep. You can't really put a child to sleep. You can put a cat to sleep, but we won't go there. So now the other teas that I have in the works, I haven't finished blending them yet. I've developed the recipe, but I haven't put them in jars yet, is a brain support tea. That one I really wasn't thinking about, but I went to a wellness fair a couple weeks ago with these teas to kind of just beta test and see what people thought of them and what kind of feedback I got. And a couple other people I've talked to that I've asked to look things over. The number one requested topic or use for a tea that I got from the parents was something to help their children with focusing. I know that there's a lot out there with kids that have focusing issues coming out of the pandemic, coming out of school shutdowns. You know, there's a lot of struggling with focusing and learning and reading. So I did some research and I put together a tea that's got a lot of different ingredients that have been shown to help with memory and help with focusing, as well as increasing the blood supply to the brain, which by default will help your brain work better, get rid of that foggy, cloudy feeling, help you think better, and help with focusing. So those are the ginkgo. Ginkgo biloba is the full name of that herb, and ginseng. And then I found a really good lion's mane powder. Lion's mane is a mushroom, so it's a really powerful nootropic. Nootropic is the term we use in herbalism for herbs that help boost your brain function. And lion's mane, being a mushroom, is a little harder to work with, but I found a great source for dried powdered lion's mane. So that's in the tea as well. Now, there's also an ingredient that I was on the fence about adding because, it's called gotu kola. And gotu kola is known throughout the world as a very powerful brain booster. It's a very well-known, well-respected nootropic, but it's not for long-term use. You can't use it for more than 2 weeks before taking a break from it. So I didn't really want to add it to this and have to add those instructions. So what I decided to do is I just made 2 different recipes. So you can get the regular brain boost tea that does not have the gotu kola in it, and that can be given every day for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's not going to have any long-term effects. And then I have another recipe that really is the same, but with the gotu kola added, and that's going to have the instructions on the label saying not to be used for more than 2 weeks without taking at least a 1-week break. So it might be really useful to use if you're going into maybe a final season in school, or you have a test coming up, or you're starting a new job, or your child's starting school, and you just kind of want to give them an extra boost. So you can use that for up to 2 weeks and then take a break from it. But the other brain boost tea, the regular brain boost tea, you can take for ongoing. It doesn't have any long-term effects. So that's how I managed that quandary. And then the other teas I put together were vaccine pre-tox and vaccine detox tea. Now, some of you might remember when I did a video on vaccine detox options, and I also have done some live classes on vaccine detox options, going over everything from acupuncture to TRS spray to herbs and homeopathy. And you can go to my Patreon page if you missed that and you want to look at that deep dive, comprehensive review of all types of vaccine detox options. But the part on medicinal herbalism covered these ingredients, and that's when I thought, well, you know what? Let me blend those for people. So if you do have an appointment coming up for your child to get vaccines and you want to do something a little extra to help prevent any side effects or help them tolerate the experience better, you can consider these. Now, there's 2 different ones, and that's because with herbalism, it's not just about treating the problem, but also doing what you can to help prevent a problem from coming on, you can prepare the body ahead of time. So there's the vaccine pre-tox tea, and then there's the vaccine detox tea. And these work very different. The pre-tox tea helps balance the immune system so it doesn't overreact or be suppressed. You want it to be right in a nice balance. And it also helps prepare the body to prevent an inflammatory reaction when the vaccine happens. So it kind of calms down, prepares your body's immune system so it's less likely to have that inflammatory response. And then after the vaccine, you want the detox tea. This is more of what's called a chelation agent or chelation herbs. And chelation is just a fancy medical term for a component or a product that's drawing toxins out of the body. So drawing out the toxins from all of those added ingredients that are in the vaccines that we just have to tolerate, but we know we have concerns about what they could do for us. Things like metals and other things like that. So the chelation draws the toxins out. The pre-tox tea prepares the body for the experience, helping to prevent inflammatory reactions or an over or under reaction of the immune system. And the detox tea helps pull out any of the bad toxins that have been introduced to the body from the vaccine. So you can use the two together, do the pre-tox for a couple of days before and the detox after. So like I said, these teas are, so far as of now, they're available on Etsy and at any, local speaking engagements that I do or classes that I teach. I'll have them with me. And I'm going to hit up some farmers markets. But other than that, if you have any questions, you can definitely drop me a line by email or give me a call or through Facebook, and I can answer those questions for you. And if you have any ideas for any future topics, let me know as well. I'm working up notes to do the next video on probably something like either eyes or ears, because those problems can start coming up as we're in, well, honestly, those are topics that parents are concerned about all year round. So it doesn't matter what time of year it is. We're always having to deal with ear problems with kids and eye problems. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and, drop me a line, like I said, and check out my other stuff on social media. I'm going to have the links in the video. I'm going to be at the Pocono Farmers Market this Saturday in Blakesley, and I'm going to be back on Long Island doing some classes end of April or beginning of May. I'll let everyone know when I firm up an actual confirmed date for those. And other than that, I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Like I always say, it's a beautiful day out there. Get out and enjoy it no matter what kind of day it is. And today's kind of day where I'm going to do that with some snow boots on. So happy spring, everybody. Bye.